Hey everyone, I'm here with my friend John, and he built me a guitar. So let's talk about this process, and I'm going to show everybody the guitar in just a moment. But back in 2019, and we were talking about a guitar, and you had offered to build me a guitar, which was very generous of you. No one has ever done that. Ever, which is awesome. I'm just a worship leader in a small town in Northeast Ohio, but this is so cool and so generous of you, John. So talk to us about like how that came to be. I was on a walk one afternoon in 2019, and you were offering to build me a guitar. Take it away.
So first, I wanted to make sure that the guitar suited what Dave wanted to use it for, and I know that he already had a Gretsch and he already had a Gibson, so I wanted to offer him something that he didn't already have, so it wouldn't just sit around. So we talked and we discussed the scale length, which is important. The two most common scale lengths are 24 and 3/4 inches, which Gibson and Gretsch use. And then there's also the Fender scale length, which is 25 and a half. So because he already has a Gibson and a Gretsch, we ended up going with 25 and a half inches for the scale length, which does make the tone a bit brighter. We wanted to give him an option for 24 frets. The other guitars he has have 22 frets, so this guitar having 24 frets gives him some more options for going higher on the neck. We also had to talk about the way that it would feel on his body, so we had to talk about ergonomics. And so one important thing for ergonomics is where the guitar sits when you're playing it. Especially since Dave stands up while he's playing worship, sometimes it had to balance on his body correctly. So that goes into, on that guitar, where the strap button on the upper horn lines up with the 12th fret on the neck. And that's important because that's the farthest you can go to the left without the upper horn getting in the way of your hands when you're playing. I have had some designs where people have been concerned that I've moved that strap button too far down the neck, but actually Stratocasters go to the 12th fret, and it's a position for that strap button that makes it balance well on your body. So I made sure when I was designing the guitar that it would balance well on his body when he was standing up.
Let's talk about that bevel in the back, John, because this is kind of like a Stratocaster thing that people like, and I knew I talked about that. And the Gibson, I love the Les Paul; it's great, but it's really hard on the stomach after a while, and of course your shoulder. So let's talk about how you accomplish that, because I mean I don't do woodworking, so how do you do that for like a bevel, like a Strat like this?
For bigger shops, it's a little bit easier because they have a bandsaw and they put the guitar on an angled platform and they just chop it off. Because I'm working mostly with hand tools, I had to take a rasp, which just removes a lot of wood, and I drew a line where I wanted for the angle to reach. And then I just by hand removed a lot of wood with the rasp. And then I switched to a file, which is still pretty coarse, and will remove a pretty good amount of wood, but it will smoothen it out from the rasp. And then I moved from there to different levels of sandpaper, and then moving up until it was smooth.
How long did that process take? That seems like a lot of work.
That was a lot of work. I did not log exactly how many hours went into that process, but I'm going to say at least a few. I would bounce around to different things. I would do that, and then I would have to fill in a section where I went a little bit too low, or where. So because I didn't want there to be any like divots in it. So I would have to fill it and then be like, okay, that's got to sit, but I can work on other things. So that was a little bit of a process, but it definitely took a few hours for the bevel. Also for this guitar, I asked Dave and he didn't necessarily want an arm bevel like a Strat, but they would do that in almost an identical way when a bigger shop would use a bandsaw and an angled platform to cut that off and then round it off. A smaller luthier, such as myself, would remove the wood with a chisel or a gouge, which is another kind of chisel that just removes more wood, or a rasp. I do not have a gouge and my chisels are not sharp, so I used a rasp instead.
Gotcha. Now, this body actually was from a different project, correct?
So I have a guitar design that I call the Matador, and I designed that guitar because usually you see rounded edges in most guitar designs, and the Matador has an angular design, which I thought was cool, but that did not suit Dave's needs. So instead, we've got what I call the Stratador, which is a fusion of the Stratocaster and the Matador. The Matador does not get as wide as a Strat, so this guitar is thinner, and it also has a larger upper horn than a Stratocaster, so we kept those elements. So that is what has made the Matador into the Stratador, is rounding the edges but maintaining that thinner design as far as the width of it, and also the larger upper horn.
Now, this neck, was this part of the old project, or was this completely different?
That neck I ordered specifically for your project because I had another neck that I was thinking of using on Dave's guitar. However, it did not have an angled headstock. Usually, so this guitar in front of me does not have an angled headstock, and you can see that the bridge is different from Dave's. Whenever you have a guitar, you want the angle of the strings to match the angle of the neck, and the necks that do an angled neck pocket usually have an angled back headstock as well. And when I talked to Dave about which bridge design he wanted a tunematic bridge, which puts the strings at an angle. So I knew that we needed to get a different neck with an angled back headstock, and I knew that I needed to have the neck pocket at the right angle. Typically, your neck pocket with a tunematic bridge is going to be around 3 degrees, but you want to make sure that it matches the strings correctly so that the strings don't get too far away from the neck at certain points and make it difficult to play. Because this neck has a flat headstock, I used a humbucker Telecaster style bridge, and I was able to just run the neck pocket flat. If you've got a guitar, make sure you know what angle your bridge is going to put the strings on. You can use either, but you got to make sure they match so that you're not conflicting in the parts of the guitar that you have.
Gotcha. Now, when I was playing this, and I'm going to play just a quick lick really fast. This the neck sounds, well, it doesn't just sound, but it feels very, very smooth. Did you have to file a lot of the frets and do a lot of fret work with that?
That neck came... I ordered it from a website that processes the necks a bit more. But sometimes when you order a neck online, they're making them quickly, and they will just take the fret wire cutters and snip it off, and it will be sharp.
Oh, yeah.
I love it, but I got it cheaply. I have an LTD F10, which is their cheapest guitar. So when it arrived with sharp frets, I was not surprised. So what you can do is you can take fine metal files, and you want to get one that's the width of the fret wire, because you don't want to be going wider than the fret wire so you don't damage the edges of your neck and fretboard. So you just have to, and another extra precaution you can take is masking off the edges of the fretboard and the neck to make sure if you do miss where you're filing, then you're destroying some masking tape instead of permanently damaging your finish. So I just took those files, and I would go from the edge and round it off until it was smooth to move my hand over. Another thing you can look for when you're looking for buying a neck, Dave's does not have it, and neither does this one. It's binding along the edge of the neck. You actually don't see that many necks that you can buy that have binding already on them, but the process of adding binding to a neck already removes those sharp edges. So you know if the neck has binding, then it basically guarantees to not have those sharp edges.
Gotcha. And yeah, it feels so very, very smooth. I want to keep going and talk about the tuners here. Did these come with the neck when you got it?
Those did not come with the neck. That neck was built to accept those tuners. Some necks have smaller holes for the tuning pegs or no holes at all when you get them. So you've got to make sure that the holes that you put in the neck are the right size for the tuning pegs you want. These ones have a larger base, so they needed a larger hole. But this neck was already designed for that, but I have had necks where the hole was too small and I had to drill it bigger. And the best thing to do, if possible, is to only make the hole bigger where it needs to be bigger, because if you make the hole bigger the whole way through, you can have the tuning peg try to bend forward because there's space that there's nothing to hold it back from. So it wants to bend forward, but if you only drill larger where it needs to be larger, then the tuning peg is secure the whole way through.
Now, there's a few more things I want to talk about. One of them is the pickups, and I understand this came from a PRS. Is that correct?
Yes, that came from a PRS, and PRS has their own pickups that they make, and they also have another company that makes them in their SE series, which is G&B. So those are G&B pickups.
And are these considered humbuckers then? I know they don't have the plate on top.
Those are humbuckers. You can actually mount humbuckers at an angle, or you can mount them with those angled pickup rings, or you can mount them with a pick guard. And you can actually do that with single coils as well. They make single coil pickup rings. It all just goes into whether or not you want a pick guard. And when I talked to Dave, he said he did want a pick guard. So I mounted those humbuckers on a pick guard instead of on pickup rings. Like this guitar also has a pick guard. So the pickups are on the pick guard. One thing in particular, if you want pickup rings, is you need an extra long drill bit so you can drill the holes for the wires. You actually go from the neck pocket and you go all the way through to the control cavity. Unfortunately, I do not have that kind of drill bit, so when Dave said that he wanted a pick guard, it made my life a lot easier because I was able to route a channel for the wires.
And then there's just a few more things, John. Let's talk about these pots right here and these beautiful tone knobs and volume knobs. So these were were these just parts that you had before? Or
those were parts I ordered. There's many different websites that I frequent that have guitar parts. You can go to eBay, but usually you're buying them in single portions, so they can be a little bit more expensive, and I prefer to order them in bulk. So we talked about hardware color, and I like to keep most guitars where the hardware is a similar color because I think it's more cohesive. So usually I'll pick chrome or black or gold. And I had already had a Tune-O-Matic bridge and a set of tuners in gold. So when I said I already had that, Dave said that we could move forward with gold. So I looked for I asked him if he wanted speed knobs or top hat knobs or Stratocaster style, and he said that he preferred the top hat, or those are actually called the bell. They're a little bit wider than a top hat. It's a very finicky difference. So we ended up going with those. And when you're doing pickups, you want to make sure that you match your potentiometers and your capacitor for your tone knob with the pickups you're using. For single coils, and I might get this reversed, so I apologize if I get it reversed. I have the two values, but I might get them to reverse. But it's 500K pots, an A500K for your volume, or two A500s if you're setting it up with a Gibson style with two volumes and two tones, and then one or two B500Ks for your tone pots. And that's if you're using passive pickups. Active pickups, you need a different value. And I haven't worked that much with active, so I'm not going to try to say the value off the top of my head. For single coils, you're going to want 250, A 250K for volume and B 250K for your tone. And the capacitors, there's kind of your tried and true, let's see if I remember the values, 0.46 microfarad for single coil and 0.23 microfarad for humbucker. I might have gotten those values right. But anyway, the larger one is for single coils, and the smaller microfarads are for humbuckers. Now, those ones, while those are kind of the industry standard, those ones are more likely to be switched out. So sometimes you have people even going, I think there's a 0.13 microfarad that some people like to use, and that'll change the range of your tone knob and how much of the high it will take away. So you can, if you've got a guitar and you don't like how much high the tone knob is doing, you might just be able to switch out the capacitor and experiment with a little bit. I'm all for experimenting.
That's awesome. And then we have one more thing, I guess. We have the three-way switch, which sounds so cool. And I honestly really like the neck pickup. And we also have the input jack. Now, were those parts just something that we ordered special for that?
So you can, once again, order parts. You can have a three-way toggle switch in the lever style if you're doing a Telecaster style, or you can have a three-way toggle switch in the Gibson style, which is the one that I put on this guitar. If I'm doing a guitar with two pickups, I tend to prefer that toggle switch instead of the lever style. There's no real reason behind it. It's just the one that I seem to gravitate to. It might be because it's easier to put those in my opinion. If you're doing a lever style, you've got to cut a slot into the guitar unless you're using a pick guard. I have done it. On the first Matador, I cut a slot into the guitar, but there's a lot of things that go into that. You've got to make sure that you don't cut too much, because with rotary tools, you can get some overcut. And so I had to actually cut too little and then take a file and finish it off. So if you're doing a pick guard, it can be easier to do a lever style. But if you're doing it directly into the guitar like this one is, then I usually go with the toggle. And usually I do put the switch directly into the guitar. So that's why I tend to favor toggle switches. Nothing against lever style.
And then the input switch, or sorry, not the input switch. The input jack, was just a part that you had before?
Yep.
Okay.
So there's some input jacks. That one is a Switchcraft jack, which I like. There's actually another kind of jack called a Pure Tone that I like, which functions the same way, but it has multiple points of contact. So the theory is that the jack will wear out less over time. So there is, when you put your cable into your guitar, there is a little kind of spring steel thing that grips it on the end and holds it in place, and the Pure Tone has 3 of them. So the idea is that your cable is more secure and and your jack is less likely to be damaged over time, but they function in the same way.
Okay, so we are going to play just a few things for you guys, and we're going to go through what each pickup will sound like. We'll start with the neck pickup, which is my favorite. We'll play a few things, and then, we'll be on our way. So this is just a simple blues riff. So that was the neck pickup, and let's try it with the bridge pickup now. This is like that Wild West sound. Very cool. Very cool. I'm going to add a little bit of reverb.
Quick note, I love cranking up the brightness on guitars for some unknown reason. I go to the bridge and I just see how bright I can get it, and then I'm just silly by playing as bright as I can.
Now, I apologize. My Mr. Black Eterna reverb pedal has been acting up recently, so hopefully this works. And it does works. Awesome. Let's see what else I can play. I'll do some A minor stuff. So that was the neck pickup again. Here is the bridge. I should note that this is actually louder than my Les Paul.
Oh, really?
Just so you know. Yeah.
So one of the reasons that could be that it's louder than the Les Paul could be the wiring of the pickups. Les Pauls, Gibsons, they use something called a PAF humbucker, which just means patent applied for. It was the first humbucker design made, and it has 5,000 winds on each pickup. And sometimes when I wind pickups, I actually like to wind them a little different. I like to do the bridge at 5,500, and I like to do the neck at 4,500. That kind of evens out the volume, because the neck is naturally louder because it's in the middle of the wavelength the string is making. The bridge is naturally brighter because it's vibrating faster because it's closer to the end of the wavelength. So when you wind the bridge at 5,500, you get a little less brightness, but you get a little bit more volume. It counters out that positioning of the pickup a little bit. And when you wind the neck at 4,500 per bobbin, so 9,000 total and 11,000 total for the bridge, you kind of lose out some volume, but you get a little bit more bright. So you kind of balance out the positioning effect a little bit, and it has them work together. But for some people, that makes them sound a little bit too similar. So you can experiment, once again, with your windings. If you ever wind your own pickups, wind them how you want to and see what happens.
And you recently got a pickup winder, correct?
I did recently get a pickup winder, and I'm having a little bit too much fun with it.
Well, if you need pickups, this is the guy to talk to. I'm going to do the middle selector switch. I don't know. The middle
That's
position.
both pickups on at the same time.
Yeah, so we're going to do the middle position on the three-way switch. Do a little bit of the same thing. I'll add some delay also. See, that to me sounds like a Gretsch sound. It's really cool, like that snappy tone, almost like a Telecaster too. So.
Another reason why this guitar might be louder than Dave's Les Paul is because of the pickup height. When you set up your guitar, while you want to set it up for playability, you also want to set it up for sound, so you can get the pickups as close to the strings as possible without getting in their way. Also, you want to make sure that the magnetic fields aren't messing with the string. It happens less on humbuckers, but on single coils, sometimes the magnetic field actually affects the wavelength of the string and makes it sound out of tune with itself. So you want to bring the pickup down a little bit if that happens. And quick thing that I have to say, because this is why my brand is JPD Guitars. My middle initial is not P. It actually stands for my wife's first name, Paula, and she is a visual artist, and she so graciously provided her talents to make a special decal for Dave's signature guitar. Another thing that goes into the appearance of a guitar is the wood you pick. And I know there's a lot of debates on tone wood, but when you're playing a solid body guitar, you don't really get a whole lot of acoustic effect, which the tone wood would affect more. So when you're dealing with a solid body, the tone wood matters a bit less. In as far as the sound properties, but it does contribute a little bit. But you can't listen to a solid body guitar and be like, oh, that one is made out of mahogany. I can tell by the way it sounds. You can't really do that because of the way the signal is going through the pickups and through a pedal board and through an amplifier. You just can't determine what wood a guitar was made out of by the sound of a solid body electric. But you do want to know the wood it's made out of, so you know the clear coat to put on top. You don't want to use a soft clear coat on a poplar or a basswood body. Those woods, even though they're classified as hardwoods because of their biological properties, they're still soft. So if you put a soft clear coat on top of a soft wood, the guitar is going to get damaged very easily. Dave's is made out of white pine, which is harder. So I had a little bit of freedom with the clear coat. We did end up going with a harder clear coat because it was easier to get that one to be a higher gloss finish. But if you want to go with an oil finish, you'll probably want to be looking at harder woods so that if something happens to them, they don't get damaged so easily.
Gotcha. But I love maple. Maple is the best wood ever.
Well, maple is hard, so you can use it on. You can use a softer clear coat on maple. The thing about maple, though, is that it's heavy. You don't really want to make a whole guitar out of maple, and usually they don't. Usually when you see a guitar with maple on it, it's actually a maple veneer that's just like 1/8 of an inch thick, and the guitar is actually made out of something else. Maple has sometimes it's a 1/4 inch thick. If you're doing something called a cap, you'd use like a 1/4 inch of maple. There's so many cool kinds of maple, like flamed maple, like curly maple, and that's why it's so popular for appearances. But it's so heavy that if you're making a guitar out of all maple, you're going to want to do a hollow, a semi-hollow, or do something that's kind of faking a solid body, which is chambering it, where you have you take a hole saw and you take out big chunks of it that are not seen from the outside, so it looks solid body, but it looks like a solid body, but there's actually holes in it to make it lighter. If you were to put a totally solid maple guitar on your body, it would hurt. It would not feel comfortable.
And we were talking just before filming that other woods like oak are very heavy also.
Yes, oak is not a traditional tone wood, but I've seen guitar builders use it with great success. You want to make sure you chamber oak. You do not want a solid oak body.
We're going to do a little bit more playing, guys. This time we're going to have a lot of distortion on. And I remember when we were talking about the guitar, I was looking for something more metal. Although this is great for worship, it's great. The original idea was to have it more for like a metal guitar because I didn't have anything for that. The Les Paul was the only guitar I had, and it was good, but this guitar would fill the gaps that the Les Paul couldn't take. So here is the AC booster with medium gain on, and the Morning Glory is also on for this. Sounds really cool. There's a song that we grew up with in the early 90s, and I think you know what I'm about to play, but I have to because it just sounds so good. I had to do that. I had to.
It's necessary.
Absolutely necessary. We'll do a little bit more ethereal stuff. This is the neck pickup with a ton of reverb and a ton of delay. I'm doing a 1/4 note delay and a dotted 1/8 delay if you wanted to know. My mix on the reverb is going to be at 12 o'clock, and the decay is around 3 o'clock. And finally, I'm going to do some swells for you guys. And this is what all worship guitarists do. Kind of, not really. But if you wanted to play a swell, I would suggest using a volume pedal or using your volume knob to achieve that. There's really no other way to do a swell, I guess, on guitar. But this is the same settings on the reverb and delay, just swelling now. Really full sound. It's really hard to do that on a stool. I should have just stood up and done that. But John, I just want to say thank you for your time, and thanks to Paula for providing her artistic insight on the flames. These are really the tongues of fire from the Book of Acts. So I want to say thank you to Paula. And if people wanted to reach out to you, if they're local in the Cleveland, Ohio area, do you have an email address that you could drop?
I do have an email address for my guitar building. It is jpdguitars@gmail.com. I also have a Facebook page, which is JPD Guitars as well.
Awesome. So if people want to get in touch with you, they'll do so on Facebook or through the email. And once again, John, thanks so much for your time. Thank you guys for watching, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel, hit that like button, and comment below on what else you'd like to see in the future. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Have a great day. God bless.